Okay, hello everybody. Welcome back to another book review. And okay, come on, what's wrong with my computer? So today I am reviewing Maya in Tokyo by Jang Ryu-jin, translated by Sunnie Chae. So I'll explain what the story is, how it reads, and why it matters. And it's a very simple but a timely concept. So what happens to your sense of self when everyone around you keeps deciding what you are? The story follows Jun-gyeong, who visits Tokyo with his wife and reconnects with his old friend An Gyeong-ju. An Gyeong-ju is an ethnic Korean who's been raised in Japan. And it moves between their student days in Korea and then their uneasy present day meeting. As Jun-gyeong, his wife, and An each label An in different ways, the appearance of Anne's baby Maya raises the question of who gets to define an identity before the world's labels take hold. So by the end of this video, you will hopefully know the tone, the themes, and whether this belongs on your reading list. And I'm apologize, it's extremely hot here again. So if you can hear some fans going in the background, that's why. So yeah, I'm reviewing Maya in Tokyo by Jang Ryu-jin, translated by Sunnie Chae. Sunnie was actually a student of mine several years ago. So I'm very happy to see her getting these books translated now. So the Korean title of the story is Tokyo e Maya, and the English translation was published in 2020. The Korean original was published just the year before, in 2019, when it was included in Chang's debut collection, collection of stories called The Pleasures and Sorrows of Work. And that collection won the 2018 Changbi Prize for New Literature, and also led to Chang receiving the 11th Young Writer Award. And that collection of stories was actually, there was a lot of buzz around that collection when it was published here in Korea. And Jang studied sociology as an undergrad at Yonsei University, and then Korean literature at my university, at Dongguk University in the graduate school. And since then, she's won herself legions of fans since her debut in 2019. And this is, I believe, her first story to be translated into English. I think it might be the only one so far. I might have to double check that. But it was published by Asia Publishers as the 27th book in the K fiction series. And of course, I've reviewed lots of great titles from that collection over the years. And Maya in Tokyo explores the identity issues faced by ethnic Koreans living in Japan. So, how does Jang introduce the theme of identity in this story? So, Maya in Tokyo tells the story of the friendship between Jun-gyeong and the Cheil-kyopo, or Zainichi Korean, An Gyeong-ju. An and Jun-gyeong meet at university in Korea, where Anne has come as an exchange student. They form a bond as a freshman, but then they later lose touch after graduation. At the beginning of the story, it's 12 years after their university days, so 12 years since they graduated. Recently married Jun-gyeong visits Tokyo with his wife and arranges to meet Anne after not seeing one another for several years. And so the story jumps back and forth between Jun-gyeong reflecting on their time at university together and then their present day trip to Japan. And through Jun-gyeong's observations and sometimes failure to observe Anne when in Korea and then also when in Japan together, Chang explores how identity is constructed, how we construct others' identities in our own minds, and then how society and culture construct and limit what possible identities are available. So, how does Jun-kyung's view of An change over time? How does he think of him in Korea? And how does this change when he meets him later in Japan? So, initially, when Jun-kyung meets An as a freshman, he is surprised that his Korean is not very good. This immediately marks him as different. However, they come to bond with each other through their shared experiences, taking the same classes, partying together, discussing football, and so on. All these kind of usual type of bonding experiences. And Jun-kyung and his friends, his Korean friends, remark that Anne is practically Korean. And at that time, they saw him as a Korean, just like themselves. But as time passes, they become aware of differences. Anne flies back to Japan every vacation because he says he doesn't like the Korean weather in summer or winter. And these days, I completely understand. And then another big difference is when Jun-gyeong realizes that Anne doesn't have to do military service. And Jun-gyeong thinks he says every time I remembered that Anne wasn't going to the army, I felt angry and wronged. That triggered random, uninformed thoughts. Does he pay taxes or vote? And we can see that a shift in Jun-kyung's perception of Anne has occurred. And then when he sees Anne in Japan, he's inspired to modify his perception once again. So how is his view of Anne challenged when he meets him in Tokyo? So when Jun-kyung and his wife meet Anne in Tokyo, she remarks that he is practically Japanese. And Jun-kyung protests, no, 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 he's practically Korean. And then they disagree on this point. But then Anne also seems conflicted about his identity, or ambivalent about his identity, or he's just aware that he exists in a sort of a space between Korean and Japanese. So Jun-kyung assumes that Anne came to Korea as a student to learn more about his homeland, but Anne flatly denies this to be the case, and Jun-kyung is shocked. And then while in Japan, he kind of marks himself as an outsider by referring to the Japanese people around them as others, and saying about them, these phonies are always polite on the outside. So Jun-kyung and his wife have different views of Anne's identity. Jun-kyung sees him as Korean, his wife sees him as Japanese, while Anne sees himself as not really belonging to either. So where does the title come from? Who is Maya and what is her role in the story? So Maya is Anne's newborn baby, and Maya seems to represent the individual before an identity has been imprinted or foisted on them by the world around them. She can't speak yet, so she isn't using language. And there's a great essay by Kim Ji-yoon, a literary critic, in which Kim concludes that while holding Maya in his arms, Jun-kyung realizes that identity cannot be acknowledged by way of interpretation. Only the person in question can interpret and edit their own identity. So this is the central concept of the story. Identity is in part foisted on you by the world outside you, and you have to navigate your own identity in relation to this imposition on you. You have to come to your own conclusion, understanding, interpretation of what your identity is and means. And, you know, a few videos ago, I reviewed Kim Sarang's classic short story, Into the Light. And that story is also about Zainichi Koreans living in Japan, but living in Japan in the 1930s. So how it's very, very interesting. These stories are quite similar. How does Maya and Tokyo's treatment of identity compare to Kim's story from almost 9 decades ago? So, I mean, well, 9.5 decades ago. So the most striking thing is that there are a lot of similarities, despite being separated by 9.5 decades. The issue of identity and the conflict surrounding it, when others perceive someone as being between two groups, remains the same. Both portray characters who are conflicted about passing for the ethnic group they live among, while simultaneously being aware that they are somehow separate. And there's a similar exploration of what this means for the nature of the individual's identity. It almost seems like Maya is an update to Into the Light. This is where we are now in the 2020s with this same issue. So anyway, thank you for watching this review of Maya in Tokyo. And if you've read this book or you're deciding you're going to read it, please let me know what you think. And please hit the subscribe button. And thanks for watching. Take care, and I will see you in the next video.